after students move on from the public schools?
It starts when you leave public school. What you have as a possibility before is kind of during summer vacation, for example, to go into a company and to try out the profession for 3 or 4 weeks. That's also offered so that you get the hands-on experience.
Has the government kind of encouraged any sort of apprenticeships or kind of field of work recently where they felt that they needed to step in and get more people apprenticing and working in those fields?
That's basically regulated by the economy, by the offer. The challenge is more that we see that very heavily in Germany and up to a certain point also in Switzerland, that in recent years not all the offered apprenticeship positions have been filled. And of course certain professions have a tougher time to attract young people. Another reason, of course, that not all the apprenticeship positions are filled. We also had in the last years a tendency to go more towards the academic, towards the university careers, with one important point. When you get a federal diploma, you have an amazing level in the job you're doing, and you really you can start at day one in a new company and you're productive. And you can bring something. But this diploma is, for example, in the United States, not recognized. It's not the equivalent of a bachelor degree. So to have more options internationally, more are going towards university. That's one point. And the other one is that we have also adapted the system that you have basically various options out of an apprenticeship to then go to a University of Applied Science and continue. So let's say you train as a mechanic, federal diploma, and then you become an engineer. But engineering doesn't start at zero. It builds where you have left off in practical terms. So there you reach a bachelor degree. Then you can go on from there, for example, to ETH and do a master or something like that. And I think an advantage of this is we see oftentimes that kids after 11 years of school, they're tired of school. They are bright, they are intelligent, but they don't want to be on their desk and in a classroom. So they want to do something practical, become a gardener, become a medical technician, whatever, something which is more connected to their passion and to their nature. So they do this for 3 or 4 years, and then they see, well, out of this, I want to continue and deepen the studies in that field, and then they go to university.
Yeah, and I was going to ask, what is there more the continuing education later on in the career? You mentioned that earlier. Let's say I'm a car mechanic and I do that for 10 years and I love it, but now I want to own my own mechanic shop, or I want to start working in, the government to make sure that cars are produced safely. In America, you would go back to school and get a master's in business administration or something like that. Are there similar programs in Switzerland for people like that who want to kind of continue their studies in a related field but not just the same?
Of course, you can continue with the theoretical part or with the business part. Go into school to complement that. The difference is really that when you have had a 3-year hairdresser formation and you have a federal diploma, you're basically able to open your shop because you had the business part, you have the technical part, you have what's needed, hygiene, how to run a shop and everything, and you have seen it in practice and you have learned it in school.
Oh, so the apprenticeship kind of contains a lot of those business and more kind of holistic education. I think in America a lot of times vocational is focused strictly on what labor you are doing, but it sounds like these apprenticeships allow for more, a wider breadth of knowledge about the industry you'll be working in.
I would say that there are really huge differences between the two vocational education and training systems. For example, the largest bank in Switzerland has been the largest bank in the world a few years back. And the president and CEO, he started with an apprenticeship in Switzerland in a bank, and then continued education. We have many examples like this. In Michigan, a Swiss professor who is one of the most recognized mathematicians in gravitational waves, she started with an apprenticeship. And then after with a bank, as a matter of fact, and then she went to ETH and started studying mathematics. So it's not that, there's really not a distinction of the value that, oh, you're too stupid, so you go into vocational. No, that's something which is really a pillar of the Swiss economy and offers you lots of possibility. And at the same time, it's an insurance of quality, because when you have an electrician, here you would ask, is it union or non-union? In Switzerland, once you have a federal diploma, you really know your trade.
Absolutely. And so what percentage, you may have mentioned this earlier, but what percentage of students take advantage of these apprenticeship opportunities compared to the percentage of students who go straight to university from school?
Well, it's a distinction between high school and apprenticeship. About 6 to the apprenticeship program and 1 to high school.
Oh, wow.
I mean, again, this is not a path which ends with the apprenticeship. In the OECD exam, when OECD reviewed Switzerland, they found that 44% of Swiss people between 25 and 64 had a tertiary degree, which is actually higher than the OECD average of 39%. And if you go to the younger ones, it's even higher. There we get to 51%.
Oh, wow.
So it means that it's not one choice or the other. It might seem little, the 1 out of 6 or 1 out of 7 who goes to high school, but then it comes together again with continued education. And actually, after Slovenia, Switzerland is the country with the highest percentage of PhDs in the population.
Oh, wow.
3.2% of the overall population has a PhD.
So, Bruno, we actually have you here at a very exciting day, because just yesterday, Switzerland and the United States signed a memorandum of understanding to expand apprenticeships among Swiss companies and Swiss invested companies in the United States, and to promote job creation in both countries. Now, this was a MOU that was originally started 3 years ago in 2018, and we are signed up for another 3 years. So can you talk about how Switzerland and the U.S. have partners in the past to further apprenticeships in vocational education?
Mm-hmm. Yes, with pleasure. So what we have seen in the past 3 years is really a number of Swiss companies who have become light towers in this field. For example, Zurich Insurance here in Chicago, the North America headquarters, they have built up an apprenticeship, white-collar apprenticeship program. Other companies with more in manufacturing. And so far it has been mostly really driven by Swiss companies here. And with regards to the MOU, I have to say that the German Chamber of Commerce in the Midwest, they have really started a great program where they're working with state governments and with companies in advanced manufacturing, only a few professions. And there they have established a great program where also Swiss companies are participating. What we would like to see now with the new MOU, that we can contribute to really bring this down from the federal level and connect state, cities, and companies to work together And we cannot offer what I've described before in Switzerland. This has been built over 150 years, approximately. So that's not a model which can be copied. The United States, they have to develop their own, specific to the needs and to the perception by the parents, by societies, by companies, by schools. But I think there we can work together to find, through best practice, help to build that and to promote it, certainly.
Yeah, sounds like there's Swiss companies in America who have found success and are starting programs with apprenticeships. Has there been any American companies you've seen that have been especially excited to try and copy the Swiss model on apprenticeships?
Again, it's not about copying; it's about taking the initiative. The huge difference so far is really that in Switzerland it's driven by professional associations, by the trade, not by government. Government just checks and controls and makes sure that the interests of the young people are protected, that they are well prepared for the job market. Here it has more been driven by education departments, by labor departments, by unions, and so on. So that's a very that's a big difference.
Are there any companies, American companies in Switzerland, that have robust apprenticeship programs that are maybe starting to work them back in America?
Yes, of course, we have quite a number of U.S. companies in Switzerland. They adapt to that. But I can give you a little example. Some 9 years ago, I actually brought the first high-level U.S. delegation to Switzerland for a week to study the apprenticeship program in Switzerland. There was the Undersecretary of Education of the Obama administration was part of it, the Dean of Education of the Dean of the Harvard School of Education, and the President of the Board of Education of Massachusetts, who happened to be also Vice President of IBM. So at the end of the week, she said, well, we have a huge Science and Innovation Center in Rüschlikon, IBM. I would love to see that. Can you make it possible, Bruno? I said, yeah, of course, we're going to see that on Friday afternoon. And she was very much impressed with what her company is doing in research and innovation there. And of course, after that week, she asked, are you training apprentices also? And they said, yeah, of course, great people, wonderful. It's really, that's fantastic experience. And she said, well, great, so you can keep the best and they continue. And they said, no way. How come? Because all the contracts have to go through IBM New York. And workers who do not have at least a bachelor cannot be employed. So we train and form apprentices, but you have to let them go and then they work for the competition. So she said, no, I've learned enough. Go back and change that. So a few months later it was changed and they can employ now. So that's part of the learning process, I guess. It's not that I pretend we are better and you should do as we do. There are so many advantages and there's so much dynamism in the U.S. economy. We can learn from each other and I think learn from the best practice. And what you mentioned, U.S. companies in Switzerland, Swiss companies in the U.S., those are great starting points.
Absolutely. So it sounds like this is the continuing of a great partnership and a great relationship. What do you think, what are the big things you think the U.S., whether it's our education system or our government or our kind of commerce, what can we learn from Switzerland in the apprenticeship model?
I guess the most important part is give the strong voice and the important voice in those curriculums to the companies, to the trade associations. They know what's needed. And don't leave it to a community college or don't leave it to government. It has to be driven by the industry.
And to flip that around, I know we've heard a lot about how great Switzerland is, a lot of great things, which is absolutely true. But from your experience, is there anything that you think the Swiss education model could learn from America and from our education and employment training system?
Oh, we are learning certainly at the university level. I mean, let's not forget the United States. They have the best universities in the world. I mean, the Shanghai 200 ranking, the first 15 universities, I guess 3 of them are in England, and the other 12 are in the United States.